Here is a game that's played between two players from Madison. Now, I'm only going to pick 3 or 4 points in the game. There's a lot of things to talk about, but I really want to focus on the unprotected pieces and things that could have happened in the game but didn't. So the game starts off. Black's second move is very interesting, moving the queen out on the second move, and I really encourage chess players not to move the queen out too early in the game, and white had a great opportunity very early here in the game, but missed it. Now, we've been talking a lot about unprotected pieces, and black has an unprotected piece right away early in the game, and a queen that is out really early in the game. And on move number 4, white could have taken advantage of this and gone up by 3 points. Can you see the move that white could have made in this position and ended up with a 3-point lead? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the knight. And if you said move the knight to d5, you are correct, because now the knight has a fork between the bishop and the queen. Of course, the queen's not going to want to be taken, so the queen is going to move out of the way, and I suppose the queen could move here and protect the bishop, but white has a nice centralized knight in the middle of the board and can continue developing other pieces to scare black out of the way. And you could see already in this position, black would have moved the queen twice and the bishop twice in the opening, while white is getting pieces out into the board. In fact, the next move that the computer suggests is moving to d4, like that, which still puts more pressure. It controls the center, and really white is ahead in this position by over 3 points. So black's in a lot of trouble, and white can just keep continuing to attack and gain a lot of space in this position. Instead, white chose to move the bishop to c4. And so we'll go on for a couple of more moves. And here you see the knight is attacking the bishop. The best move would have been to retreat the bishop to this square here on e2. But what white does instead is moves to d5, which is not a terrible move. Black responds by moving the black pawn up. And here, white could retreat, but instead, white captures the pawn on f7. And normally it would not be a very good move. In fact, it is the number 3 move, but it does give black the advantage. There is a way that white could have taken advantage of this, and we talked before about the desperado, a piece that sacrifices itself to get as much value as possible. So if you're going to sacrifice a bishop with a pawn, you want to try to get as many points possible. Now, white was probably thinking that black was going to take with the queen, which is what black ended up doing, and white could have actually gotten 2 points for 3 and not been too far out of the game. In fact, by looking at the computer, it looks, black would have been ahead, but just by a little bit. But if you look, black has 2 undefended pieces here, and what white could have done is taken the pawn on e5 and put a tempo on the queen at the same time. So white did sacrifice a bishop, but did end up getting 2 pawns in its place. And black still has this unprotected piece here that white could take advantage of at another time. This is the position that we left off at, but I switched the board to look at the game from black's perspective, because now we're going to pick 3 moves that black could have done to make a difference in the game. Right now, black is ahead, and black has a bishop to a pawn. So black is basically 2 points ahead, and usually if you have a lead, you should be able to keep that lead. In fact, white gave black opportunities to blow this game wide open, but black didn't quite capitalize on it. So let's look at what happened. The first few, there's a lot of things I could talk about with each move, but I'm just going to go ahead and play through this game because we could probably spend 5 minutes on each individual move and look at some of the different things that happened. But I just want to focus on the major things that happened or didn't happen in this game. Now here's one right here. This is move number 18 in the game. And we talk about unprotected pieces. And here, white has 3 unprotected pieces. And black is actually ahead by 6 points now, at least according to the computer. You can see that white only has the bishop and the knight, and black has 2 knights and a bishop. Pawns 2, 4, 6 to 2, 4, 6. So basically, a minor piece ahead and some pieces. And if you look right here, this piece is wide open. Black could have just taken the pawn, moved it over, and just captured the other pawn on E, and now been up 6 points. Another thing that black could have done is gone in between these 2 pieces with the rook and attacked both pieces at the same time with a fork. Knight would have to move out of the way, say like this, and then black could have taken the pawn and put a tempo again on the knight. Probably the best thing for black to do would put the knight right there. And you can see, well, look at this. Black could put another attack on white and just totally destroy white's position and really get in there and make black's life difficult in this game. Instead, black attacks the knight with the pawn, and the knight retreats to f3. Now this next move by black was very interesting. Black moved the bishop to h3. h3 is a wishing and hoping move. And you want to be careful in chess about wishing and hoping moves. Against players who aren't very good, these kind of moves will work. But against chess players who are really good, it may not work so well. What black was hoping for was that white would go ahead and capture the bishop on h3. Because if black captured the piece, or if white captured the piece, then black could take the rook, capture the knight, and have a fork between the bishop and the pawn. More than likely, white would probably move the bishop out of the way, and then another free pawn right there, another undefended piece, and black would be way ahead of the game. So I understand why black made the move that it did, but again, that's called a wishing and hoping move. And white actually played the best move that it could, because talking about undefended pieces, black has 2 undefended pieces right here. So white ended up taking the pawn on g5 instead, which actually is the move that is supposed to be played. And black ended up retreating. Black had to be careful because here's another pawn right here that is unprotected. So by retreating that bishop, white's going to end up getting 2 points and getting right back into the game again. Yes, white is down by a minor piece still, but black now only has 4 pawns and white has 6 pawns, and the game is just about even. The best thing for black to do in this situation was actually to sacrifice the bishop on g2. The king would recapture, but then black could put a fork on that knight, and then the knight wouldn't be able to capture the pawn, and the game black would have a pretty good advantage here. So white takes the pawn, black retreats, white gets the other pawn, and the game is almost even. Black is still ahead, but just by a little bit. So black moves here, and this is the move that put black in the advantage again. What white did was retreated the knight to g5, but the better move was to put the king in check. And it looks like that's kind of a crazy move for white. In fact, let's switch the board around and look at it from this perspective. Let's go back here. Again, white ended up going here to g5, but by moving to f6, oops, wait a minute, there we go. By moving to f6, there's an attack on the king, and it looks like the knight is open, but the bishop is protecting the knight. So the king, well, there could be an exchange rook for these two pieces. Seems a little bit crazy, but it gives white a little bit of an advantage. Black's still ahead, but not by much. So the king would probably want to move there instead, and then white can start building up pressure here in the middle of the board. Here's a nice X-ray attack. So if black decided that it wanted to like capture white's pawn, for example, black could just put the rook right up here in front of the king, and now black is in a ton of trouble, and the game could be over very, very soon. Yeah, so there's just a lot of things that could have turned the table for white if white would have played just a little bit more correctly. So if you take a little more time as a chess player to make your moves and look for those undefended pieces, great things can happen to your game.